A trip to the South Orkneys is a very large and expensive undertaking. The number of people that have to get involved in a 13-man operation is far more than just the people on the islands. You're looking at a budget in excess of $350,000, and at some point, it makes you wonder when some of these rare and hard-to-get-to sites are going to just stop being put on the air. They're rare for a reason, and finances are becoming as big an impediment as permitting. Is it worth it just for ham radio? Does the cost exceed the benefits of coming to one of these places to do it?
This trip started again with a phone call suggesting that a place called South Orkneys could warrant a visit from the Braveheart along with the ham radio team. Phone calls are easy to say yes to. Actually getting here is a hell of a lot harder. Ushuaia port has changed a lot over the last 10 years. The first time we came to Ushuaia, we drove up the channel, up the Beagle Channel, without a pilot, arrived in Ushuaia at the port and took the consequences. And the consequences were not too bad. Today you can't do
that. This is an interesting trip in that we're trying to shoehorn in a great amount of material into one boat, the Braveheart. So there's an actual container that we had to ship down. It went out in October to make sure that it was down in Ushuaia.
It's just like it left Atlanta. Everything is labeled, all the 2x4s, the bracing, everything is labeled where it goes, and there's marks to show all the locations for things. We've packed each box with a list of exactly what's in the box. And we stacked the expensive items all the way in the back and the very bottom so that they were more protected. And then we've got smaller boxes that'll go on the island, some first, some second. And I've tried to put those in the front area so we can get those out first.
The owner of the Braveheart is Nigel Jolly. His son Matt Jolly is the captain. They've got an excellent crew. The crew is tremendous.
We actually left New Zealand with no other work in between. I wasn't on board. Matt, my son, was skipper. Drove the ship for about 25 days from Tauranga to Ushuaia in Argentina.
The boat's about 129 feet long. And Nigel and Matt know every nook and cranny, and we used every nook and cranny. So it was like a bunch of ants back and forth, getting material out of the container, tunneling it down into the bowels of the Braveheart, finding areas for it. A lot of the credit for that goes to Nigel, and he is a stern taskmaster to say the least. Of course, it took the compliance of all the amateurs and his crew to find homes for all this stuff. There's a whole bunch of activity, and it happened in the course of about a day. We've got everything stowed, and away we went.
We left with a pilot. There's no way you can get around that. The DXpedition boys can tell you what the costs were. It wasn't cheap. We took this pilot on at the wharf at 700 hours in the morning, and we made about a 4-hour trip down the channel. The channel is an international waterway. You've got Argentina on one side and Chile on the other side, and it is an extremely well policed piece of water. There's reporting stations, there's radio checkpoints the whole way down. You cannot drive down that channel in any sort of boat without being confronted, questioned or asked the whole way down. We dropped the pilot off towards the mouth of the Beagle Channel, and about the next thing you see after getting into open water is Cape Horn. Our idea was to head directly south. We're going across what's called the Drake Passage, the fiercest piece of water in the world, and although we wanted to go south at the same time off to the east, instead of heading to the east, we went directly south for the first couple of days. It's a piece of water that would take us maybe 3.5 to 4 days to get across in good conditions. We made the decision to head south directly in case the bad weather came and hit us, and if it did hit us, it would hit us directly on the beam. We could then turn and go with it. We did that for the first day and a half. The weather was very nice. We turned and the weather stayed with us the whole way.
The voyage was much smoother than I expected. We had a little bit of lumpy seas the first day or two, and then it was smooth as silk, which was absolutely amazing for those latitudes.
This is Coronation Island across here.
This was my first trip with Braveheart owner Nigel Jolly, even though I've been on board for 3 DXpeditions. Frankly, he's amazing. I don't know how to describe him. He's very energetic and very outspoken, which suits me just fine.
This is not a smile. Okay? Yeah. Edges of your mouths go up when you smile. Right? This is going to the toilet. Thank you. This is your beach, that little bit of yellow stuff there. This is the pipeline. And theoretically, we will anchor, I would say, about just the other end of my nail there. So we're going to anchor around about 11 metres out here somewhere. It seemed to be a place that wasn't visited very often. We asked around about some other yachts, other ships that came here, and most of them don't come here. So the information we had as far as seafarers was concerned was very little. The ham radio operators seemed to have more information than we did. The last day and night as we came in, we had icebergs on the radar everywhere you looked. It then closed in, total fog. We had searchlights running. We had 2 guys in the wheelhouse, one of them at the wheel and one of them on the radar. It's terrifying sometimes when you come into a place like this at night, surrounded by the unknown. You haven't got good charts, you don't know what's in the water, and you see the icebergs. It's what you can't see on the radar that's the worry. When we arrived, the beach was covered in seals. We are not allowed to disturb them. We are supposed to walk between them, which in itself is a bit of a danger. We're bound by very strict rules.
They'll be curious and wonder what's going on, but after that, they'll be all right with us. We got fur seals and elephant seals here. The LAs probably aren't going to be much of an issue. The fur seals are a little more inquisitive and want to see what's going on.
What do you think, Mike?
Agreed.
We can use that as a support. When we got here, we found that rather than having a nice beach-type location, we found that the island is very rocky. We have an immediate rise of about 25 feet coming out of the water, and then the land continues to rise in a westerly direction with some fairly big mountains in behind us.
We just have to leave these guys a runway to the water.
I think they'll work their way around us okay. And the water runoff is back over
right
here.
Over there.
So we'll be nice and dry.
Yeah, this is a good spot. We're out of the way of the seals. No ridges, no gullies of water.
That'll be a big thing. We wait in 2 or 3 days' time when we look at that other mud hole.
Oh, it's going to be a mud hole.
It's going to be, it's guaranteed to be a mud hole.
This is far better. Much better. This is it.
It's a deal.
One of the key elements of an expedition is adequate safety and shelter and infrastructure. We selected polar haven shelters, which are very wind resistant. They offer creature comfort and quite a bit of room.
Fairly unique from my point of view. I've not seen anything like that before. But then again, this is the first time I've been involved with hard structures with a hard wooden floor. We got given the job of supplying the material, the flooring, the timber, the plywood and the polystyrene insulation out of New Zealand.
Now, New Zealand dimensions their lumber a little bit differently than we do in the States, so we had to do some conversion from metric to feet and feet to metric and so forth.
It was perhaps a challenge of dimensionality. And so there was initially confusion about how metric stuff was going to fit into imperial measures.
New Zealand went to metric many years ago. The shelters themselves are imperial measurements, and imperial and metric don't join together. They don't join together at all.
Outside to outside.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle with the pieces that had to fit into the groove were the wrong size. The plywood we had for the floor wasn't the right size for the tent.
Nigel and his crew are very, very practical people. And when they saw that we were having some heavy weather building the floors, they came in with their enthusiasm and skill and soon sorted us out.
George ordered them, you talk to him. We can't alter the frame, so the framing for the floor had to be imperial. It was just a matter of getting stuck in, getting a handsaw, getting the perimeter, and making everything fit in between.
We put down a base, we put down a frame, we put styrofoam under the base.
You'll be able to contain all that stuff down there.
We then covered the base with plywood, which we drilled down in about 20 places. I had the pleasure of manning the drill. And then, of course, the top of the shelters went up around the frame.
We're in our second day of construction. Last night we finished the first shelter, so we're secure as far as the operating tent goes. We could maintain people here on an emergency basis if necessary. Right now we're assembling the second structure, which will be our sleep and meg shelter.
We have one insulated shelter, which we use for operating, and one uninsulated shelter, which we use for sleeping, eating, and greeting. But we need to be prepared for any emergency. The shelters will keep us safe if we get stranded on the island due to bad weather, high surf.
Excellent shelters. We haven't had a lot of strong winds, but we certainly have had 40 knots, and they haven't moved. They haven't felt a shudder. We've had a little bit of snow, we've had a lot of cold, we've had rain, so they've come through very well.
Back on my farm in August, we prepped everything. Took us 4 days, VE3EJ, K9ZO, myself, and some other local friends of mine. Worked about 4 days cutting up the coax and 200-foot lengths prepping all of the antennas. So all we had to do was, once we got in the field, was extend them, tighten hose clamps, and we were ready to rock and roll.
These ground radio plates have 8 32-foot long radials. We made all of this up in Illinois back in August, so we can just roll it out and it's ready to go. We're saving a lot of time doing it this way.
Our original plan for antennas on this DXpedition was to use quarter wave ground-mounted verticals with quarter wave radials based on some circumstances that we'd experienced in other locations, mounted in a radial form around the camp, with the camp at the center. That would have allowed us to have the maximum distance between antennas on the same band, and also arrange the antennas in a way that the harmonic relationship with the frequencies would minimize the interference.
I think if we can find the spot, we need to build one.
We're going to build one. Well, let's go back to the end of the coax and build one there. Okay. In many cases, we were unable to drive a pipe or a base for the vertical antennas into the ground. We find that there's roughly 6 inches on average of overburden above the rocks. So we've built little pedestals out of rocks and mounted a pipe in there. And all the shorter antennas, in fact, are guide. Every single antenna on the site here is guide.
We need a flat spot for the Battle Creek Special.
We're 400 feet each way. See what we got already.
Is that off that direction?
Yep.
We've got antennas up for 30, for 15, for 40, for 20, 15, and another 40-meter antenna going up now. And things are going well. I think we're ahead of schedule. The weather's cooperated with us for a bit, and we should do well.
QRZ, Victor Papa 8 Oscar, radio Kilo, listening 980. Zulu 4, Germany, Whiskey Echo. Billy Zulu 4, Golf Whiskey Echo, 59. Thank you. Whiskey 5, Italy Zulu, 5 and 9. 5 and 9, thank you. Thank you. Golf Echo X-ray, 5 and 9. WAGEX, thank you. IK7 Lima Japan Zulu, 5 and 9. Thank you, QRZ. Yes, sir, thank you very much. Charlie, November 8 Delta X-ray. NADX 5 and 9. Yeah, NADX, you're also 5-9. Thank you. Echo Alpha. Echo Alpha 8 Alpha Oscar Papa 5-9. Thank you. A4 Kilo Charlie 5-9.
So this is a hard DXpedition. You really have to be fit to come to a place like this and enjoy it fully. There's a lot of scrambling to do, a lot of carrying. You want to be in the best shape you could possibly be in before you come on one of these.
This trip has been different in a number of ways. I suppose the most obvious one for me is that I'm getting older. I've been doing this now for 10, 12 years, and there's 4 or 5 of these guys who I've been with at least 3 times. They're getting older. The whole group of ham radio operators are an older group than we've had before. And that's brought its own problems.
We were told that there were 3 easy small boat landings. What we discovered when we got here is that there was a cliff landing onto rocks, and there was some ropes tied off along the rocks, pitoned in.
It wasn't easy for any of us. Now, we've got some young guys on Braveheart. They had to use both hands and both legs to scale the rocks. And it proved to us early that it wasn't going to suit this group of ham radio operators.
We climbed up onto a rock ledge that we held onto by this rope that we worked along, down into a muddy draw on perilous footing, and finally up onto small landing. It was difficult to get on, and it was difficult to get off. Then, by the second day, the crew of the Braveheart had built a ladder.
The Braveheart crew brought out some of their finest skills and engineering. It is absolutely something to behold.
It's a sturdy piece of equipment. It's not beautiful. It's very, very strong, and it's got a maximum gross loading of 3 ham radio operators at a time, secured with nails and a little bit of Kiwi ingenuity.
Even with the changing of the tides, it accommodated easy access to the island by everybody. There's been no difficulties.
Some of these operators are big guys, and our ladders have held up very well.
It made it much easier. It was cleaner, it was more regular, you could see it in the dark.
The stairway to heaven, as has it been called a couple of times. It's just a shame we're not allowed to leave them here, because it would be a help to anybody who wanted to get up there.
Up here we've engraved the word stop. It's not for the crew. Some of the ham radio operators on this trip have PhDs, which means they're extremely learned. We find people with PhDs to be sometimes pig ignorant. So we've decided to tell them to stop climbing at this point.
"30 meters has been amazing. When we go to these weird places, 30 meters seems to be a real winner. It, as far as I can tell, has been open 24 hours a day to somewhere in the world. So my favorite band's turning out to be our real producer here. Well, this team has been a lot of fun. A lot of old friends with whom I've traveled to several places, which is pretty much my #1 reason for coming on these trips, is to travel with my buddies again. And some new faces that we've got to meet, and they're pretty interesting. They're a lot more into radio, I think, than I am, which is fine, because it gives me time to go explore and to socialize.
What are we doing right now? We're doing a shift change. We're coming on, you're going back for dinner.
Maybe it's not like bacon rinds, right? Bacon rind spaghetti?
None of this canned crap for us, man. No, it's like really, really good spaghetti, just like at home.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, maybe better.
Well, it depends if, Nigel looks or reminds you of your wife or something.
Maybe my ex-wife.
As usual, it's the microlight penguin bonding, and everybody's getting along fine, and it's just a really neat experience to go with these guys.
We're letting the top 160 operators in the world, EY8MM, VE3EJ, do most of the 160 work. These guys are awesome. How many? Over 1,000 QSOs now on 160?
It's 15,000 kilometers from any populated destination, so we should be good.
Probably the greatest adventure I've ever had. Certainly the most exotic.
Great pile-ups, a lot of good work, and look at this view. It's excellent.
The landscape is interesting, but the best part has been the actual pile-ups.
on Signey Island, which is below 60 degrees south. Above 60 degrees south, there is sovereignty involved, so access is dependent on approval of the nations governing those islands. Below 60 degrees in the Antarctic Treaty Area, access is dependent upon demonstrating responsible plans for trips to these islands. Entities above include places like Bouvet, Marion Island, and Heard Island, and each of those would come under the sovereignty of their respective nations. Below, we've got Peter I, the South Shetland Islands, and the South Orkney Islands, and we're on the South Orkneys. There's no sovereignty here, so approval of a nation is not required, but it is necessary to submit a plan which demonstrates that you will treat the environment responsibly, that you have appropriate safety precautions, and you have contingency plans in place. To come to Signey Island, two plans had to be coordinated. One was for occupation of the island, how we're going to deal with the environment here, how we're going to respect it, and leave no trace of our presence when we leave. The other aspect dealt with the ship, and that involved the New Zealand government. They looked at how it was going to manage its waste, whether or not there would be discharge of any bilge water, whether there would be appropriate precautions for not introducing non-native species to the island. So all those bodies coordinate and decide whether or not the plan you have submitted is appropriate to the place that you're going to be occupying. As an example of some of the requirements, our generators had to be placed within containers that would contain any spill of oil or fuel.
There's no natural features here that we can hide our generators behind. So we've got a little rock outcrop here, making a wall, a couple of walls. We'll put the generators in here, so the generators will be able to breathe and the exhausts will be able to go out. We'll put a lid across the top, we'll put some spill trays in the bottom. There's no sort of cliffs or trees or anything that we can hide our generators. So we're having to make something.
Our ship's crew was very ingenious in this respect. They created some little plastic berms that the generators sit in, which in turn sit on small trolleys. So there is no way any fuel or oil could escape onto the surface of the island. To service the generators, we merely pull the small trolleys out of the shelter for the generators, and they can be serviced there without any environmental risk.
Roger, 5-9, Kilo 4 Alpha, Papa Golf, 73.
73, stay warm. Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200.
Whiskey Foxtrot 2, Sugar.
Willie Foxtrot 2, Santiago 59.
QSL, Whiskey Foxtrot 2, Santiago 59. Thank you.
73, thank you for being there. Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200. Okay, Mike Victor, the Mike Victor only, go ahead.
Victor Echo 3, Mexico, Victoria.
VE3, Mike Victor, you're 59.
Yes, QSL, also 59. Thank you.
73, from Antarctica, Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200.
November 8, Delta Charlie.
November 8, DC, you're 59.
QSL 59, you're also 59 from November 8, Delta Charlie. Thank you.
73, thank you. Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200.
Well, we've tried to do things a little bit different on this trip. In the past, it's been almost a laissez-faire. This time, we've been a little bit more rigid to see if perhaps we might be more efficient. There's two groups, and we're doing 3 shifts a day. So roughly, we operate for 8 hours, go in and eat something, and then fall into bed, sleep 5, maybe 6 hours if you're lucky, then get up and repeat it. So that way on one day, one group will do the noon shift and the others will do the morning shift and then the late night shift. So there's a lot of radio operating.
73, Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200. K1ZM, K1ZM. Where are you at? You're 59, go ahead.
Yeah, we're in the state of Massachusetts. You're 5 and 9.
Roger, Roger. Nice and loud down here, okay?
Okay, thanks a lot. See you later.
73, 59 South Orkney. Victor Papa 8, Ocean Radio, Kilo 200.
The bad part is this is completely against the human's diurnal rhythm. Not that everybody's dull and is having a horrible time at all, but we're much more fatigued. It's harder to maintain a bright outlook when we're fighting the diurnal rhythms.
November 1, Italy Whiskey. November 1, IW59. You're 5 and 9 into New Hampshire. Thank you. Thanks in 73. Victor Papa 8 Ocean Radio Kilo 200.
DXpeditions have personalities, and they're made up by the members of the team. I can go anywhere from 150 to 250 Qs per hour on phone when conditions are good, and that's a lot of fun to go fast, but it's also fun to have fun. And just talking with these people and, laughing and joking, be quick on the wit, it makes the whole experience a whole lot better.
73 to X-ray, go ahead.
Roger, November 2, X-ray, November 2, X-ray, 566, Jersey. My name is Tom. Tango, Oscar, Mexico, QSL.
Howdy, Tom. My name's Penguin. Thanks for the call. Into AXX, you're 59 South Orkney, QSL.
QSL 59 South Orkney. Keep up the good work. And thank you for the new country. From into AXX. Be safe.
Roger, Tom. That's why we're here, putting on the country. We really enjoy this. We really appreciate you guys coming out and playing. It's a great time. Everybody benefits. 73, Tom. Thanks for stopping by. Victor Papa 8 Ocean Radio Kilo 200. Okay, Ki, Kilowatt Italy. Try it again.
QSL, this is Kilowatt Sierra 2 Italy 59 Niagara Falls. Thank you.
Well, this is a unique place for me. It's my first time below 60 degrees south, so it's the first Antarctic place that I've visited. I've never come close to an iceberg before, and a couple of days ago we had a fantastic opportunity to go exploring in the little runabout boat, and actually had a chance to go zooming through the middle of an iceberg.
Carlos.
We're able to see the land in a way that nobody on a cruise ship can. We're able to visit places that no one else really is able to do. So the experience is way, way different. With a Zodiac going full tilt boogie, the nose in the air, there's spray all over you, people smiling. It's like, wow, this is really cool. Because it is. You look around, there's mountains, there's seals, there are elephant seals, there's snow, there's cold, there's glaciers. Don't have this at home, and you just have to keep that idea in mind that next time when I'm in my truck driving down to work, I'll flash back to this.
Look over here. It looks like God set fire to the ice. Bloody marvellous. He must have been holidaying in New Zealand for the summer, and he's relaxed. He's come down here and he's just lit the place up. Wow.
Absolutely stunning. It's against a backdrop of high mountains with snow-covered peaks, glaciers. Every day it's different. There's different glaciers, there's different water conditions, different light conditions. It's an absolute delight to be sitting here. It really is.
Everybody belongs here in Antarctica, and it's a good thing that everybody isn't here. You know how when you're sitting at home in a pile-up trying to get through to a DXpedition and you finally get through, and you get that big smile on your face, and you say, hey, I work these guys, and you put down your headphones, and maybe you run out and tell your wife or something, I just worked the blankety blank islands, and she says, that's nice, dear. Well, at this end of it, what I feel like is that I'm handing out those smiles. So every time I say TU to somebody, I figure that guy is going to smile and say, hey, I broke through that pileup, I worked those guys. The very nice thing to me about being on DXpedition is handing out those experiences to everybody else, because I just visualize people thrilling at getting through. I'm not used to this Antarctic propagation. These pileups are strange because you never know who you're going to hear. So I have this huge global pileup of kind of like S0 signals. And it's a bit of a challenge to pull out calls from it. And it's also a bit of a challenge, I'm sure, for the pileup to hear us. About a kilometer away from us across the bay is the Cygney station of the British Antarctic Survey, BAS. It's on the site of a former whaling factory. In fact, the place where it is called Factory Cove. It's been here for 60 years. The British have had an Antarctic Survey base here.
We had a wonderful opportunity to visit the base a few days ago. They were very, very nice hosts.
We saw the laboratories where there's some work on seals and some work on mosses. He showed us where they're building a seal-proof fence to surround a certain experiment they're doing. Also, I got my passport stamped, and it says British Antarctic Survey, Cygney, and it's right in there next to the Midway stamp. I like that.
The ground is not quite as good as what we had thought it would be, and therefore the choice of quarter wave verticals, particularly in the higher bands, I think may not have been quite the best choice. There are really very few flat spots here, and we've had to put our antennas on small rock hills, and we have found that as a result the ground conditions are not as good as what we had hoped for, and I think we're suffering a little bit on efficiency and have had to, in some cases, increase the number of radials to get that efficiency back. You know, everything here is a compromise. The amount of coax that we have, the desire to keep antennas apart, and the desire to keep things centrally located around the camp make things difficult. On 160, we got the Battle Creek Special on a fairly high plateau. On 80 meters, we're using the spider beam pole with a wire taped to it. It's a quarter wave vertical with a considerable number of ground-mounted radials. On 75, we've got a step IR with lots of radials underneath it. On 10 through 40, we have DX Engineering quarter wave verticals with ground-mounted radials. The biggest issue is the radial maintenance, particularly on the lower frequency antennas. Every day the seals, frankly, make a mess of our radial fields. The 160 antenna is particularly vulnerable. We've come to placing small rocks on the individual radial wires at an interval of about 4 to 5 feet to try and stabilize things. So there's a daily inspection routine that comes into play. We have to check guy tensions as a result of changing wind conditions. We also have to monitor the guy lines in case seals have rubbed up against these connections. But it's an ongoing battle, but I think it's working fairly well with the maintenance. We haven't lost anything yet, and I think we're in pretty good shape here.
This is the Whiskey 6, please. Whiskey 6, Bravo Charlie. Whiskey 6, Bravo Charlie, 59.
Thank you very much. It's Whiskey 6, Bravo Charlie, Quebec. Last letter, Quebec. You're also 5 and 9.
Yeah, QSL, Bravo Charlie, Quebec. Thanks for the correction. Victor Papa 8, Oscar Radio, Kilo 205. Juliet Romeo 1, Hotel Romeo Alpha, I think, 59, Dodo. Juliet Romeo 1, Hotel Uniform Alpha, QSL, thank you very much, 73. Sierra Quebec 3, Delta Oscar India, 59.
Okay, QSL, you also 59, 73.
73. Is there a 9 station, please? The 9 station. Okay, Kilo 9, Quebec Foxtrot Radio, you're 59. Okay, break with you. The other Kilo 9, please. The other Kilo 9.
Kilowatt 9, Japan Echo. Kilowatt 9, Japan Echo.
Kilo 9, Juliet Echo, 59.
QSL, thank you. Also 5 by 9.
Thank you, 73. Victor Papa 8, Oscar Radio, Kilo 205.
It's February the 5th, Saturday, 11:30 Zulu. After a few technical difficulties this morning, James and I got to the site to find the band's absolutely dead, no signals anywhere. We currently have 5 transmitters on automatic CQ. We've got 10 meters in behind me here, 17 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters, 15 meters, all calling CQ with not a single response in the last half hour. The bands are absolutely dead. There's something has gone wrong. CQ, 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 CQ. Nothing. Amazing.
The band is dead.
The band will be alive soon.
10 is dead, long live 10.
From the very beginning of this project, we kept on hitting all the usual donors and new donors, including for the first time some corporate donors, to fund this undertaking. $350,000 covers chartering a boat, shipping all the equipment, purchasing equipment, computers, software, internet access through Iridium and BGAN, and raising the money we use clubs, we use foundations, we use individual contributions, and as the expenses continue to balloon, maybe it's time we start bringing airlines into it, maybe it's time we start seeking more of a corporate donor involvement. Maybe we sell space on these trips to tourists and use other means to go to the South Orkneys or one of these other rare type islands.
We're taking down our quarter wave vertical on 80 CW. It worked very well. All the antennas stayed up. Lots of wind. We had no antenna failures, so I think the team was happy.
Just be careful in case it takes off. You get a finger stuck in there.
I got my gloves here. I'm fine. I believe we had well over 60,000 contacts, and I feel real good. And at 3,700, it was like 1.5. Pretty good, yeah.
I'm always struck by the way that a team comes together in a place like this. It seems to bring out the best in everyone. Everyone works together. You get a well-functioning organization, and that never ceases to amaze me.
Well, I'm trying to get all the tent parts back in the bag from which they came out of. And getting them back in is always more difficult than getting them out. But we'll get there.
We started here at 6 o'clock this morning. This tent here is already down. Most of the antennas are down. Generators are at the beach. And we're going to stop for coffee at about 10. By 12 o'clock we hope to have this site cleared. Everything down to the beach. Generator shack dismantled. All those rocks will be spread out. And then we'll start moving it to the boat.
We're governed by a lot of restrictions here. From the moment we set foot on shore to the moment we leave. We're not supposed to leave any sign of us having been here. It's what's called minimal impact. The impact that we have made when we leave should not be seen. We should be able to have come, taken photographs, done what we've done, and left the terrain to show no sign of us having been here.
Well, tomorrow morning, what we're going to do is, while the crew are tying everything down on the ship, we'll bring all the ham radio operators back here. They'll spread out, 14 of them abreast, and they're going to be looking for stuff like this. Little bits of plastic, little wrappers, and I don't know where the hell this blue stuff comes from, but I'll tell you what, someone's going to blame it on us. Pieces of paint on wood, little bits of cardboard. We're going to go across, we're going to pick up everything like that. We'll possibly pick up penguin shit and bloody seal poo as well.
There is a British base here. The base commander says yes, he will come and inspect the site when we leave, and hopefully we will get top marks for what we've done, because we're putting a lot of effort into tidying up.
The only guy who sucks green chewing gum around here is Wes, all right? This is Wes's gum. He tells me it's his last trip. I'll tell you what, if I catch up with him, it possibly will be his last trip.
This particular voyage, the crew has really been more than any of us ever imagined. They're all phenomenal. And wow, I can't even imagine a better group of guys to do a trip like this with.
Once again, one of these DXpeditions has been very, very rewarding to me. There's the radio side of this game, which of course is the main reason to be here, but the opportunity to participate in some of the sightseeing activities, go on walks, look at the wildlife, be able to photograph various aspects of this island, to me is at least as important as the expedition itself.
The next time when I'm in my truck driving down to work, I'll flash back to this and think, wow, it's all about injecting a sense of renewal, having fun with a bunch of guys and making a lot of contacts. It's just a different experience which makes the person better.
What we do with Braveheart is we take people to very remote places so they can achieve what's in their hearts. That can be diving, it can be bird watching, it can be ham radio, and of them all, ham radio is the ones we enjoy the most. Not because the locations we go to, but a unique combination of the location and the people we go with.